Hi, everyone. Welcome as you're coming in. Welcome to Bookaccino Live for September 15th. How did it get to be September? I'm trying to figure this out. I don't feel like I had a summer. I think it rained too much. So welcome, welcome, welcome. There's so many books to share. We actually went a little bit bigger on this presentation. So totally looking forward to it. If you could drop into the chat what you're reading right now, whether you're reading an ebook, whether you're reading an audiobook, or print, whatever you're doing, we're just really curious always to what you're reading. If you're in a book group, what your book group's reading. We look at those later on and we have so much fun seeing what you're doing. I'm reading the new Robert Dugoni book, which I believe is in this presentation, and it's really good. So we're doing that. We're going to do our usual today is I am going to present the books, and then those of you who are here live will get to do a little Q&A afterwards, which will not be part of the video. And that'll be just something special that we can do with just you. So nice to see so many people here on a September afternoon. It's beautiful here today. I think it's probably like boiling hot because I haven't been outside, but outside it looks beautiful, and that's a nice thing. So for those joining us, if you just drop in the chat what you're reading and what format you're reading it in. And I know that often our book reporter readers are reading more than one book. So if you're listening to one, actually I'm listening to The Only Plane in the Sky, which is really, really good about 9/11. And I am reading the Robert Dugoni book, which I think is called, I should really go get it. It's in the presentation. I'm terrible with titles. Tom Donadio, our editorial director, will tell you that is the way I am, not good with titles and remembering. I make them up. It's not good. It's the reason we have the PowerPoint so I can actually look at it.
Well, it looks like a lot of people are here, so maybe we could get started.
We can get started? Great. So here we go. Welcome to Bookaccino Live, a lively talk about books on Wednesday, September 15th. It's like, oh my gosh, the year is just flying by. So let's start with your favorite picks, your top picks from last month. And we've got The Lincoln Highway by Amor Towles was your favorite pick. It came in number one and sort of never moved. Got William Kent Kruger's Lightning Strike. That was almost going back and forth with The Lincoln Highway. Oh, William by Elizabeth Strout. Alice Feeney's Rock, Paper, Scissors, which I had the pleasure of reading over vacation. And it's a book reporter bets on selection you'll be hearing about in the next couple of weeks. And The Last Mona Lisa by Jonathan Santlifer, which is a terrific book. Got a really fun interview with both Kent and with Jonathan. Jonathan and I just had, it was just such a pleasure to be talking about art and the Mona Lisa and his work as an artist. And with Kent, he's a huge favorite of ours on the site, and to get some background into Lightning Strike and why he decided to write this prequel. So these are your top picks from the last month, and we're looking forward to seeing what you pick this month. So with no further ado, we're going to start with fiction. We're going to start with The Inheritance by Joanne Ross. Just one second. I just want to move me out of here. And okay, I'm going to give you a little tip. You see how this it says over here that this is a fall preview selection. Just want you to know that we just opened a 24-hour contest for this to win this book. So if you're signed up for our fall preview, if you're fall preview on the site, you can go and enter to win this book by Joanne Ross. So what's it about? When a conflict photographer, Jackson Swan, dies, he leaves behind a conflict of his own, making when his three daughters, each born to a different mother, discover they're now responsible for the family's Oregon vineyard, and for family they didn't ask for. As for the sisters, Tess, Charlotte, and Natalie, they reluctantly gather at the vineyard. They're soon enchanted by the Swan family matriarch, a namesake of Maison de Mademoiselle, Maison de Madeleine wines, whose stories of bravery in World War II France and the love for a wounded American soldier will reveal the family legacy they've each inherited and change the course of all their lives. So there we've got The Inheritance, and you have an opportunity to go enter to win that as soon as this presentation's over. Next, from T.C. Boyle, we've got Talk to Me, and I just love the chimp that's on the cover of this book. I just think he's so funny. You may know him as the author of The Outside Looking In. It's just out this week. When annual behaviorist Jai Shimmerhorn demonstrates on a TV game show that he has taught Sam, his juvenile chimp, to speak in sign language Amy Villard, an undergraduate at Guy's University, is so taken with the performance that she applies to become his assistant. A romantic and intellectual attachment soon morphs into an interspecies love triangle that pushes hard at the boundaries of consciousness and the question of what we know and how we know it. If it were possible to speak to the members of another species, to converse with them, not just give commands or coach them, but to really have an exchange of ideas and a meeting of the minds, what would happen? Did apes have God? Did they have souls? Did they know about death and redemption? Did they dream, make wishes, hope for the future? When I was reading the description of this book, I was thinking about it is when you go to the zoo and you're seeing all these animals and we're watching the animals, and it's almost like I want to know if they're in the back room saying, okay, guys, we're going to put on a show for these people in their own language, of course. I'm going to swing here, you swing there. Let's see what's going on, guys. So I'm always thinking about that when I sit there and look at the zoo, and maybe this is like some insight into what he thinks is going on with them. Next, we've got the Robert Dagoni book, The World Played Chess, a book that I am reading right now and thoroughly enjoying. Those who like The Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell that Robert wrote years ago will be really interested in this book. It's on sale this week. It's 1979, and Vincent Bianco has just graduated from high school. His only desire is to collect a little beer money and enjoy his final summer before college. So he lands a job as a laborer on a construction crew and working alongside two Vietnam vets, one suffering from PTSD. Vincent gets the education of a lifetime. Now, 40 years later, with his own son leaving for college, the lessons of that summer, Vincent's last taste of innocence and his first taste of real life, dramatically unfold in a novel about breaking away, shaping a life, and seeking one's own destiny. I'm reading this and I'm in that time, I'm in that place. He's just opened the book that he has gotten, a diary he's gotten from this Vietnam vet, and you're reading what was going on in his mind, and then we're going to see how it shaped the characters along the way. He is such a good writer of writing emotion. So highly recommending this. Betting it's going to be a bestseller. We'll see. Next, we've got the Book of Form and Emptyness from Ruth Ozeki. This is coming out on September 21st. 1 year after the death of his beloved musician father, 13-year-old Benny O begins to hear voices. The voices belong to things in the house: a sneaker, a broken Christmas ornament, a piece of wilted lettuce. Although Benny doesn't understand that these things are saying or what they're saying to him, he can sense their emotional tone. Some are pleasant, a gentle hum or coo, but others are snide, angry, and full of pain. At first, Benny tries to ignore them, but soon the voices follow him outside the house, onto the street, and at school, driving him at last to seek refuge in the silence of a large public library, where objects are well behaved and know when to speak in whispers. There, Benny discovers a strange new world. He meets his very own book, A Talking Thing, which narrates Benny's life and teaches him to listen to the things that truly matter. This is new from Ruth Ozeki. I think she wrote The Year of Meats, if I'm not mistaken. There was a book that came out shortly after we launched Bookreporter. And whenever she does a book, there's a lot of thought going into it, and it's going to take you to places that you really hadn't really thought about before. And she's doing it once again. It's a big, thick novel for anybody who really wants to dive into a story in a big way. Next, we've got Cloud Cuckoo Land, which is coming from Anthony Doerr on September 28th. Highly, highly anticipated book from the author of All the Light We Cannot See. The heroes of Cloud Cuckoo Land are trying to figure out the world around them. Anna and Omer on opposite sides of the formidable city walls in the 1453 siege of Constantinople, teenage idealist Seymour in attack on a public library in present-day Idaho, and Constance on an interstellar trip bound for an exoplanet decades from now. Like Marie War and Werner in All the Light We Cannot See, Anna, Omer, Seymour, and Constance are dreamers and outsiders who find resourcefulness and hope in the midst of peril. An ancient text, the story of Atheon, who longs to be turned into a bird so that he can fly into a utopian paradise in the sky, provides solace and mystery to these three unforgettable characters. Anthony Doerr has created a tapestry of times and places that reflect our own vast interconnectedness with other species, with each other, with those that lived before us, and those will be here after we're gone. So we've got different times and places all colliding into those same things that he's talking about at the end. This is what we're all looking for together, is connectivity with one another. Next, we've got the Santa suit from Mary Kay Andrews, because you know what, we just have to realize that the holidays are coming. Also, a little tip here as I talk about the Santa suit. There are lots of talk about supply chain. Remember, supply chain was something that we never knew about before the pandemic. Like food magically got to the stores in those plastic wraps. Toilet paper was magically on the shelves. All those things that we now are hearing, there's supply chain issues. The supply chain issues, the microchips for making cars. And they're anticipating supply chain issues with books going into the holiday, meaning if you know you want to give books, buy them soon, buy them early, buy them when you see them. Don't sit there and say, I'm thinking of getting such and such for so-and-so later, because printer issues, delivery issues, things like that. So I'm on board with the indie stores that are just saying, think about your holiday planning a lot sooner. And I say that as I present to you the Santa suit. It's coming on September 28th. When newly divorced Ivy Perkins buys an old-fashioned farmhouse sight unseen, she's definitely looking for a change in her life. The Four Roses, as the farmhouse is called, is a labor of love. But Ivy didn't bargain on just how much labor. The previous family left so much furniture and so much junk that it's a full-time job sorting all through it. Now, just a little aside here. Those of you who follow Mary Kay Andrews, who know anything about her, she loves A, old houses that she can restore, and B, junking and finding things on the side of the road and making them beautiful in her home. So you know that this is one of those books that's got what we call like house porn in it, because you're going to be hearing about the decorating the house as much as the rest of the story. With that aside, I continue. At the top of a closet, Ivy finds an old Santa suit, beautifully made and decades old. In the pocket of the suit, she finds a note written in a childish hand. It's from a little girl who has one Christmas wish, and that is for her father to return home from the war. This discovery sets Ivy off on a mission. Who wrote the note? Did the man ever come home? And what mysteries did the Rose family hold? And I love moments like this when you capture little snapshots of a person's life and you're like, what did that note mean? What was happening? A couple of years ago, when we were doing a cabinet in our house, we pulled this old cabinet out, and out slipped a photograph of a couple. And there have been two previous owners to this house. And we were like, is this the family, the first family that was living in the house? And we, my son and I actually tracked down the son of the people who lived here and sent him a copy of the picture and said, is this your family? And we got a great backstory on our house and why it was built, why the driveway's on this side and not on the other side, just so many fun things. So when I saw that this little thing is going to be in the pocket of this suit, I was thinking back on that story of how you find this one little item of something and you just like, who are these people? Because they actually were people who lived here just the same way we are, and they, you know, like moving around the rooms. So there's the Santa suit with a little aside story from moi. Okay, then we've got A Single Rose by Muriel Barbary. You may remember her as the author of The Elegance of the Hedgehog. This is a novel that is coming on September 28th. Rose has just turned 40 when she gets a call from a lawyer asking her to come to Kyoto for the reading of her estranged father's will. So for the first time in her life, she finds herself in Japan, where Paul, her father's assistant, is waiting to greet her. As Paul guides Rose along a mysterious itinerary designed by her deceased father, her bitterness and anger are soothed by the stones and the trees in the Zen gardens that they move through. And during their walks, Rose encounters acquaintances of her father, including a potter and a poet, an old lady friend, his housekeeper and chauffeur, whose interactions help her slowly begin to accept a part of herself that she never before acknowledged. At the reading of the will gets closer, Rose's father finally posthumously opens his heart to his daughter, offering a poignant understanding of his love and a way to accept all that she has lost. You can imagine what that'd be like, moving around, knowing all these people that knew your father that you didn't have a relationship with, and what they're sharing with you. Next, we've got The Wish by Nicholas Sparks. This is just a beautiful cover. I love to see boats like that decorated for the holidays. This is coming on September 28th, and it's actually set in a place that longtime readers will know I hold kind of dear, though I haven't been down there since 2014, which is the Outer Banks of North Carolina. 1996 was the year that changed everything for Maggie Dawes. Sent away at 16 to live with an aunt she barely knew in Ocracoke, a remote village on North Carolina's Outer Banks, she could think only of the friends and family she left behind, until she met Rice Trickett, one of the few teenagers on the island. He's handsome, genuine, and newly admitted to West Point. He shows her how much there is to love about the world on the windswept beach town and introduces her to photography, a passion that would later define the rest of her life. 2019, she's a world-renowned travel photographer. She splits her time between running a successful gallery in New York and photographing remote locations around the world. But this year, she's unexpectedly grounded over Christmas, struggling to come to terms with the sobering medical diagnosis. Increasingly dependent on a young assistant, she finds herself becoming close to him. And as they count down the last days of the season together, she begins to tell him the story of another Christmas, decades earlier, and the love that sent her on a course that she never could have imagined. The fact that this setting is on the Outer Banks and Ocracoke is really remote. It's one of the places we used to drive down to. It's just may stay much further north up on the island, but it's one of those really remote places that you can picture. And also you can picture this as like a beautiful holiday story. Actually, my son Greg right now is up in British Columbia doing photograph on Victoria Island. No, Vancouver Island, I'm sorry. And he has no phone service. That's the only thing that I'm hearing from him right now is I occasionally get a text, but he enjoys doing outdoor photography. And for those who do, they see the world a completely different way. They're seeing the world in a picture that they're going to be able to look at and view in a different way from just us driving by on the road and seeing what we see. So I find this book interesting for that reason. Now I've got the Book of Magic, which is coming from Alice Hoffman. It's the conclusion of her Practical Magic series. It's the final book. The Owens family has been cursed in matters of love for over 300 years, but all that's about to change. This final book in the series begins in a library. Notice how we have another book in the library, this book in the library. That's where you find your truths in the library. The best place for a story to be conjured. When beloved Aunt Jet Owens hears the Death Watch beetle and knows she has only 7 days to live. Jet is not the only one in danger. The curse is already at work. 3 generations of the Owens women and one long-lost brother use their unusual gifts to break the curse as they travel from Paris to London to the English countryside, where their ancestor, Maria Owens, first practiced the unnamed act. The younger generation discovers secrets that have been hidden from them in matters of both magic and love by Sally, their fiercely protective mother. It's on sale October 5th. Those of you who want to catch up with the series, you've got a couple of weeks to go out back and read the other books in the backlist. This is going to be a fall preview title that we will be giving away as well. Next, we've got Crossroads by Jonathan Franzen. It's coming on October 5th. It's December 23rd, 1971, and heavy weather is forecast for Chicago. Rusa Hildebrand, an associate pastor of a liberal suburban church, is on the brink of breaking free of a marriage he finds joyless, unless his wife, Marion, who has her own secret life, beats him to it. Their eldest child, Clem, is coming home from college, on fire with moral absolutism, having taken an action that would later shadow his father. Clem's sister, Becky Long, the social queen of her high school class, has sharply veered into counterculture, while their brilliant younger brother, Perry, who's been selling drugs to 7th graders, has resolved to become a better person. Each of Hildebrand seeks the freedom that each of the others threatens to complicate. So there we've got everybody meeting at the Crossroads. Next, we've got My Monticello, and it's fiction. It's coming from Jocelyn Nicole Johnson. It's on sale on October 5th. Set in the near future, the Ponus novella My Monticello tells of a diverse group of Charlottesville neighbors fleeing violent white supremacists. Led by Donasha, a young Black descendant of Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings, they seek for refuge in Jefferson's historic plantation home in a desperate attempt to outlive their long foretold racial and environmental unraveling within the nation. Johnson's characters will all seek out the home as a place in an internal state, whether in the form of a Nigerian widower who immigrates to a meager existence in the city of Alexandria, finding himself adrift, a young mixed-race woman who adopts a new tongue and name to escape the landscapes of rural Virginia and her family, or a single mother who seeks salvation through buying a house ahead of the apocalypse. So there we've got My Monticello. I believe, if I remember correctly, when I heard her presenting this book, that she is a relative going back of Thomas Jefferson's. I'm almost sure. Don't quote me on that one. We have to do a little bit of research for that to be sure. Now we're going to do historical fiction. No, this is a big favorite for you. This is going to be another fall preview giveaway title called The Riviera House, and it's by Natasha Lester. It's Paris, 1939. The Nazis think Alain can't understand German, and they're wrong. They think she's merely cataloging art in the Louvre and unaware that they're stealing national treasures for their private collections. They have no idea she's carefully decoding their notes and smuggling information to the resistance. But she's playing a dangerous game. Does she dare trust the man she once loved with her secrets, or will he only betray her once again? She has no way to know for certain until a trip to a stunning home on the French Riviera brings a whole new level of peril. Now let's go to the present day. Wanting to forget the tragedy that has left her life in shambles, Remy Lang heads to a home she's mysteriously inherited on the Riviera. While working on her vintage fashion business, she discovers a catalog of the artworks stolen during World War II and is shocked to see that a painting that hung on her childhood bedroom wall, it's the same picture. Who is her family really? And does the Riviera House hold more secrets than Remy is ready to face? And it's interesting because so much was stolen during World War II. And where did those pieces end up? They ended up in just people's homes. Did they end up in museums, other places? I think this is the kind of book that really will make you think about, gee, what did happen to all those artifacts? Next, we've got Harlem Shuffle by Colson Whitehead. And I know I previewed this one to you before. It's on sale this week. I love the premise of this book. To his customers and neighbors on 125th Street, Carney is an upstanding salesman of reasonably priced furniture, maintaining a decent life for himself and his family. Few people know that he descends from a line of uptown hoods and crooks, and that his facade of normalcy has more than a few cracks in it. Cracks that are getting bigger by the time, all the days. When his cousin Freddie falls in with a crew who plan to rob Hotel Teresa, the Waldorf of Harlem, and volunteers Ray's services as the fence, now Ray has a new clientele, one made up of shady cops, vicious local gangsters, two-bit pornographers, and other sordid Harlem lowlifes. Thus begins a tussle between Ray the Striver and Ray the Crook. As Ray navigates this double life, he begins to see who's actually pulling the strings in Harlem. Can he avoid getting killed, save his cousin, and grab his share of the big score, all while remaining his reputation as the get-to source for everything your needs up in Harlem? So there we've got Harlem Shuffle by Colson Whitehead. Next, your eagerly anticipated book, for those who weren't here to hear about it before, we've got Amor Towles' The Lincoln Highway, which is coming on October 5th. June 1954, 18-year-old Emmett Watson is driven home to Nebraska by the warden of the juvenile work farm, where he has just served 15 months for involuntary manslaughter. Mother long gone, his father recently deceased, and the family farm foreclosed upon by the bank. Emmett's intention is to pick up his 8-year-old brother, Billy, and head to California, where they can start their lives anew. But when the warden drives away, well, he's got some different plans, because he discovers that two friends from the work farm had hidden themselves in the trunk of the warden's car. And together they've hatched a plan altogether different for Emmett's future. One will take them on a fateful journey in the opposite direction to the city of New York. So here we've got these guys that are getting out of prison in Nebraska, heading east. What's going to happen? And we're from Gentleman in Moscow. And you know that there's going to be a really deep story that's going on here. Also, he's talked about, when we were meeting with him, that this quarter of he's doing a little presentation for us, that this book sort of picks up kind of like the day after Gentleman in Moscow leaves. So there's a little like nuance kind of thing going on here, a little game that he plays with his readers. And if you're smart, you're in on the joke. So there you go. Next, from the author of The Tattooist of Auschwitz, we've got Three Sisters. It's by Heather Morris, and it's coming on October 5th. Against all odds, 3 Slovakian women have survived years of imprisonment in the most notorious death camp in Nazi Germany, Auschwitz. Livia, Magda, and Sibi have clung to each other, nearly died from starvation, and the brutal whims of the guards at this place of horror. But now the Allies are closing in, and the sisters have one last hurdle to face: the death march from Auschwitz, as the Nazis try to erase any evidence of the prisoners held there. Due to a last-minute stroke of luck, the 3 of them are able to escape formation and hide in the woods for days before being rescued. And that's where the story begins. From there, the 3 sisters travel to Israel to their new home. But the battle for freedom takes on new forms. Olivia, Magda, and Sibby must face the ghosts of their past and some secrets they've kept from each other to find true peace and happiness. I had the pleasure of interviewing Heather before the pandemic in our office. And when we were talking, she mentioned that she had been to Israel and she had the kernel of a story that she was going to write because she'd met three sisters there, and she was feeling that she would actually be able to, tell their story in the same way that she's done with the tattooist of Auschwitz. So there you've got coming from Heather Morris. Okay, we're going to do thrillers and mysteries. Hope you're on the edge of your seats for these. Start with Leanne Moriarty's Apples Never Fall. Now, I'm going to confess to you that I was not a huge fan of Nine Perfect Strangers. I actually, I think I wrote in the newsletter, I didn't finish the book. I'm enjoying the series on, I believe it's Hulu. Tom Donati will correct me later if it's not Hulu, but I think it's on Hulu. And I said, okay, let me look at Apples Never Fall. And I really enjoyed this book. I read it over the break. It's going to be a bet's on. Wish I could talk to Leanne. We're going to see if we can probably try to set that up. So the Delaney's are fixtures in their community. The parents, Stan and Joy, are the envy of all their friends. They're killers on the tennis court, and often their chemistry is palpable. But after 50 years of marriage, they finally sold their famed tennis academy, and they're ready to start what should be the golden years of their lives. So why are they so miserable? One night, a stranger named Savannah knocks on the door, bleeding after a fight with her boyfriend. The Delaney's are more than happy to give her small kindness she so sorely needs, if that was all she wanted. So they welcome into her home. Kids can't figure out why they're allowing this woman to live there, but they become kind of enamored with having Savannah around. But later, Joy goes missing, and Savannah is nowhere to be found. And the police question the one person remains, Stan. But for someone who claims to be innocent, he, like many other spouses, seems to have a lot to hide. So two of the Delaney children think their father is innocent, two are not sure. But as the two sides square off against each other, all the Delaneys will start to re-examine their shared family history in a very new light. And this is one of those books that unfolds, and you think you're done. And at the end, it goes boom, boom. And I've always loved books where that's little boom, boom at the end, because it's like, you think you got it all, folks? Let me give you a little bit more. She does a really good job with Apples Never Fall. Next, from Hank Phillippe Ryan, we've got Her Perfect Life. It's on sale this week. Everyone knows Lily Atwood, and that may be her biggest problem. The beloved television reporter has it all: fame, fortune, Emmys, an adorable 7-year-old daughter, and the hashtag her loving friends of fans created, Perfect Lily. To keep it all she has to do is protect one life-saving secret, her own. Lily has an anonymous source who feeds her story tips, but suddenly the source begins telling Lily inside information about her own life. How does he or she know the truth? Lily understands that no one reveals a secret unless they have a reason, and she's terrified someone is determined to destroy her world, and with it, everyone and everything she holds dear. How much will she risk to keep her perfect life? Those of you who have followed Hank through the years know that Hank is an investigative news reporter, and she's on air up in Boston. So when you see her writing a story like this, you're like, okay, where is this coming from? And you just know that she's got that back inside look at what television reporting is like, just because that's her life, her perfect life. So onward. Next, we've got Wiley Cash, When the Ghosts Come Home. It's coming on September 21st. When the roar of a low-flying plane awakens him in the middle of the night, Sheriff Winston Barnes knows something is strange is happening at the nearby airfield on the coast of North Carolina. But nothing can prepare him for what he finds. A large airplane has crash landed and is now sitting sideways on the runway, and there are no signs of a pilot or cargo. When the body of a local man is discovered shot dead and lying on the grass near the crash site, Winston begins a murder investigation that will change the course of his life and the fate of the community he has sworn to protect. Everyone is a suspect, including the dead man. As rumors and accusations fly, long-simmering racial tensions explode overnight, and Winston, whose own tragic past has followed him like a ghost, must do his duty while facing the painful repercussions of old decisions. As if these events weren't troubling enough, he must finally confront his daughter, Colleen, who has come home grieving a shattering loss that she cannot not fully articulate. So there you go, When the Ghosts Come Home, from Wiley Cash. Next, I've got something that is going to be only out on audio, but since I know a lot of you are audio listeners and a lot of you are Erik Larson fans, he wrote these Splendor and the Vial. I'm going to tell you about No One Goes Alone, which is going to be on sale on September 28th. It's only an audio story because it's sort of out of his lane. Like some authors write in, just different genres. And we all know Eric Larson really writing historical fiction. So when he decides he's going to write something else, the publisher's like, so how about if we do it on audio alone? So it's kind of funny. It's No One Goes Alone. Well, this is going to be alone on audio. A group of researchers set sail for the Isle of Dom in the North Atlantic in 1905 to explore the case of several mysterious disappearances, most notably a family of 4 who vanished without a trace after a week-long holiday on the island. Led by Professor James, a prominent member of Society of Psychical Research, they begin to explore the island's sole cottage and surrounding landscape in search of a logical explanation. The idyllic setting belies an undercurrent of danger and treachery, with raging storms and unnerving discoveries adding to the sense of menace. Increasingly unexplainable events unfold. The now stranded investigators are unsure whether they can trust their own eyes, their instincts, one another, or even themselves. So there you've got, it's the author's note is going to be read by Eric on this book, and it's going to be read by Julian Rind-Tutt. So those of you who love audio, there's something to take a look at. Next, we've got a book it's next on my pile. It's called Last Girl Ghosted. It's by Lisa Unger. It's coming on October 5th. And yes, like I love the way they've done the cover there where somebody's writing in condensation. So here's what we've got. She met him through a dating app. It's an intriguing picture on a screen. A date at a downtown bar, which she thought might be a quick little hookup, quickly became much more. She fell for him hard. It happens sometimes. A powerful connection with a perfect stranger takes you by surprise. Could it be love? But then, just as things were getting real, he stood her up and they disappeared. Profiles deleted, phones disconnected. She was ghosted. Maybe it was her fault. She shared too much too fast. But isn't that always what women think, if they're really the ones to blame? So soon she learns there were others, girls who thought they were in love, girls who later went missing. She had been looking for a connection, and now she's looking for answers, chasing a digital trail into his dark past and hers. She finds herself on a dangerous hunt, and she's not sure whether she's the predator or the prey. I always sit and say, oh gosh, I wish I was like younger and things like that. And then I think about how I would have to deal with social media in a whole different way, as in dating, as in swipe right, swipe left. I am very, very glad I am the age I am and that I'm already married. And they're just like these stories of these, you hear girls all the time, went out on 2 dates with him, everything was great, and then he disappeared. And for her, she's sitting looking like, okay, what could really have happened? But ghosted is a very real thing these days. Next, we got memoirs, biographies, and nonfiction. We're going to start with Fuzz by Mary Roach. And you know that when you're going to book for Mary Roach, well, you know it's going to be something very, very different. So it's Fuzz, When Nature Breaks the Law. It's out this week. What to be done with a jaywalking moose? A bear caught breaking and entering, a murderous trade. 300 years ago, animals broke the law, would be assigned to legal representation and put on trial. These days, as New York Times bestselling author Mary Roach discovers, the answers are best found not in the jurisprudence, but in science, the curious science of human-wildlife conflict, a discipline at the crossroads of human behavior and wildlife biology. Combining little-known forensic science and conservation genetics with a motley cast of laser scarecrows, langur impersonators, and trespassing squirrels, she receives as much about humanity as about nature's lawbreakers. And when it comes to problem wildlife, she finds humans are more often the problem and the solution. I find this really funny because where we live, it's pretty rural. And every once in a while, a bear will appear in the neighborhood and everybody will be writing, like, the bear is back behind my house, the bear is behind my house. And it becomes this very funny chain, like, through the days. And then we have a lot of people who move out here for the first time and they put something up and they go, what is this? And we'll go, coyote. And they're like, oh, what do we have to do? And we go, take your small animals inside. So it's really interesting when you sit there and say, okay, what are you saying from the animal's point of view? We had these little chipmunks last year that were running around on our patio, running around. And they were running up in the trees and they were starting, and everybody said that there was a shortage of whatever they wanted to eat, and they were squirreling all those away. But it was really funny as I sat in my lawn chair watching them, I sort of wondered, what did they think of me? So there you go. Did they think that I really finished that book turning those pages? What was going on? Okay, next we've got Travels with George in Search of Washington and His Legacy by Nathaniel Philbrick. It is out this week. When George Washington became president in 1789, the United States of America was still a loose and quarrelsome confederation and a tentative political experiment. Washington undertook a tour of the ex-colonies to talk to ordinary citizens about his government and to imbue with them the idea of becoming one thing, Americans. Now, I'm just going to do a little aside here because if you live anywhere in the Northeast, you always say Washington slept here. And we just figure he was never home because we would just sit there every time we went to a different place. It's Washington slept here. So reading this book, now I'm understanding why he slept all those places. He was going out to talk to ordinary citizens in their towns. So those plaques are probably really real and no one made it up. Because believe me, when we were little, we used to see, it was like, where did he ever go home at night? Because there's always these places. Anyone who lives in the Northeast, you get what I'm talking about. So in the fall of 2018, Nathaniel Philbrick embarked on his own journey to see for himself what America had become in the 229 years since. The narrative moves smoothly between the 18th and 21st centuries as we see the country through both Washington's and Philbrick's eyes. Written at a moment when America's founding figures were under increased scrutiny, Travels with George grapples bluntly and honestly with Washington's legacy as a man of the people, a reluctant president, and a plantation owner who held people in slavery. I also want to know in this book, if we talk about his teeth are really wooden, because remember when you were in school, when you were little, that was something you really thought about a lot when you're supposed to be studying something else for the test. So there you go. There's Travels with George. Daniel, I am looking for you for those answers. And I do want to know where he slept in my town. So I'm hoping I'm part of the journey. Next, we've got Vanderbilt, The Rise and Fall of an American Dynasty, which is written by Anderson Cooper and Catherine Howe. And he said he has written, I saw this week, he's written a book for his son. He recently had a child by a surrogate, and he is just enamored with this child. I think he's about 1 year old right now. And this book is on sale on September 21st. When Cornelius Vanderbilt decided to go into business on his own, few would have believed that within 6 decades, he would epitomize American wealth, magnet of shipping and railroad empire that made him the richest man in the country. In the wake of his death in 1877, his heirs bitterly fought over his estate, sowing familial discord that would never fully heal. And the generations of Vanderbilts who followed lived lives of unimaginable excess, steeped in tides of success and failure. Now the Commodore's great-great-great-grandson, Anderson Cooper, joins with historian Catherine Howe to explore the story of the legendary family and their remarkable influence. Cooper and Howe breathe life into the ancestors who built the family empire, basked in the Commodore's wealth, hosted lavish galas, and became synonymous with the unfettered American capitalism and high society. My husband always says that a lot of this happened before anyone had to pay taxes. No wonder everyone was so wealthy. So there's Vanderbilt. I know we're going to be hearing a lot about this in the next couple of weeks, so you're on top of it. Next, we've got Bourdain, Definitive Oral Biography by Lori Woolever. I'm dying to read this book. I was a huge fan of Bourdain's and his travel. And when he died in June 2018, fans around the globe came together to celebrate the life of an inimitable man who dedicated his life to traveling nearly everywhere and eating nearly everything, shedding light on the lives and stories of others. His impact was outsized, and his legacy has only grown since his death. Now, for the first time, we've been granted a look into his life through the stories and recollections of his closest friends and colleagues. Lori Woolever, Bourdain's longtime assistant and confidant, interviewed nearly 100 of the people who shared Tony's orbit, from members of his kitchen crews to his writing, publishing, and television partners, to his daughter and his closest friends, in order to piece together a remarkably full, vivid, and nuanced vision of Tony's life and work. So that's one I definitely want to get my hands on, coming out September 28th. From David Sedaris, we've got A Carnival of Snackery, Diaries 2003 to 2020, coming out on October 5th. If it's navel gazing you're after, you came to the wrong place. Ditto Treakley's self-examination. Rather, David Sedaris's observations turn outward. A fight between two men on a bus, a fight between two men on the street, pedestrians being whacked over the head, or gatherings to watch as a man considers leaping to his death. There's a dirty joke shared at a book signing, and then a dirtier one told at a book party. There are lots of jokes here, plenty of laughs. Time marches on. Sedaris at his desk or on planes, in hotel dining rooms, and odd Japanese inns records it. The entries here reflect an ever-changing background, new administrations, new restrictions on speech and conduct, What can you say at the start of the book? You can't say by the end. So it's going to be what you start isn't going to be the way you finish. So Carnival of Snackery. Next, we got Her Honor by Doris Hazard Cordell. And I had the pleasure of hearing her speak about this book before at a preview as well. And it's My Life on the Bench, What Works, What's Broken, and How to Change It. She was the first African-American woman to sit on the Superior Court of Northern California, and she knows firsthand how prejudice has permeated our legal system, and yet she believes in the system. From ending school segregation to legalizing same-sex marriage, its progress relies on legal professionals and jurors who strive to make the imperfect system as fair as possible. It's a very candid account of her years on the bench, and it shines light on all areas of the legal system, from juvenile delinquency and the shift from rehabilitation to punishment, along with racial biases therein, to tens of thousands of plea bargains that allow our overburdened courts to stay afloat, as long as innocent people are willing to plead guilty. There are tales of marriages and divorces, adoptions and contested wills, some humorous, others heartwarming, still others deeply troubling. And when I heard her speak, she said that she has the real respect for the law, a real respect that what has happened with the law, like, through the years. But by the same token, she has such a hard time that sometimes following the law led her to put someone who was very young into jail for life, because that is the way the law read you had to do something. And she feels that there are times that there's the law, and then you have to look at the person, and you have to look at and see what to do. And there are things that troubled her along the way. It's not just that she believed that every single thing that she was doing was correct, but she was following the letter of the law. So it's a really interesting story. I have this one. I'm looking forward to reading it. Next, we've got The Redemption of Bobby Love, a story of faith, family, and justice. This is a fall preview title. It's coming out on October 5th. Bobby and Cheryl Love were living in Brooklyn, happily married for decades, when the FBI and the NYPD appeared at their door and demanded to know from Bobby, in front of his shocked wife and children, "What's your name? No, what's your real name?" Bobby's 38-year-old secret was out. As a Black child in the Jim Crow South, he found himself in legal trouble before his 14th birthday. Sparked by the desperation he felt in the face of limited options and the pull of the streets, he became a master thief. He soon found himself facing a 30-year prison sentence. But Bobby was smarter than his jailers. He escaped, fled to New York, changed his name, and started a new life as Bobby Love. And during that time, he worked multiple jobs to support his family, his wife and their growing family, coached Little League, attended church, took his kids to Disneyland, and otherwise led a normal life. And then it all came crashing down. So The Redemption of Bobby Love. Next, we've got Smile, the Story of a Face by Sarah Ruhl. And I had the pleasure of hearing her talk about this book, and I want to get her on for an interview. It's on sale on October 5th. With a play opening on Broadway and every reason to smile, Sarah Ruhl had just survived a high-risk pregnancy when she discovers the left side of her face is completely paralyzed. She's assured that 90% of Bell's palsy patients see spontaneous improvement and experience a full recovery. Like her own mother, but Sarah is in the unlucky 10%. And for a woman, wife, mother, and artist working in theater, the paralysis and the disconnect between the interior and exterior brings significant and specific challenges. So she begins an intense decade-long search for a cure while simultaneously grappling with the reality of her new face, one that, while unrecognizably is her own, is incapable of accurately communicating her feelings or intentions. In Smile, she chronicles her journey as a patient, wife, mother, and artist, and she explores the struggle of a body yearning to match its inner landscape, the pain of postpartum depression, the story of a marriage, being a playwright and a working mother to 3 small children, and the desire for a resilient spiritual life in the face of illness. So there we've got Smile by Sarah Ruhl, October 5th. Next, we've got The Taking of Jemima Boone, which is coming from Matthew Pearl. This is coming on October 5th. On a quiet midsummer day in 1776, weeks after signing the Declaration of Independence, a 13-year-old Jemima Boone and her friends Betsy and Fanny Calloway disappear near the Kentucky settlement of Boonesboro, the echoes of their faraway screams lingering in the air. A Cherokee Shawnee racing party has taken the girls as the latest salvo in the blood feud between the American Indians and the colonial settlers, who have decimated native lands and resources. Hanging Maw, the raiders' leader, recognizes one of the captives as Jemima Boone, the daughter of Kentucky's most influential pioneers, and realizes she could be a big pawn in the battle to drive a colonist out of the contested Kentucky territory for good. With Daniel Boone and his posse in pursuit, Hanging Maw devises a plan that could ultimately bring greater peace to both the tribes and the colonists. But after the girls find clever ways to create a trail of clues, the raiding party is ambushed by Boone and the rescuers in a battle that has reverberations. So there's what we've got as the taking of Jemima Boone. Next, we've got Stanley Tucci, Taste My Life Through Food. I don't know if anybody's been watching the series that he did on CNN. So well done. So this is coming October 5th. Stanley Tucci grew up in an Italian-American family that spent every night around the kitchen table. He shared the magic of those meals with us in the Tucci cookbook and the Tucci table. But now he takes us beyond the savory recipes and into the compelling stories behind them. Taste is a reflection on the intersection of food and life, filled with anecdotes about growing up in Westchester, New York, preparing for and shooting the foodie films, Big Night and Julia, falling in love over dinner, and teaming up with his wife to create meals for a multitude of children. Each morsel in this gastronomic journey through good times and bad, 5-star meals and burned dishes is as heartfelt and delicious as the last. So I'm really looking forward to this one, just given how much we like to cook. It's funny, Tom and I had a small party with a dinner party with friends the other night, and he was cooking on the grill. And as Tom is apt to do, we ran out of propane. Like this happens all the time. And it always happens when we have company over, never when it's just us, unless it's something really exotic that we're making that needs to be on the grill. So he goes, gets another propane tank, puts it on, and comes flying into the kitchen and says to me, the grill is not getting hot. It's on, but it's not hot. Like, turn on the oven. So I'm like, okay, we're making salmon. I'm like, okay. So he loves making on these cedar planks on the grill, the way it infuses the salmon and whatever. So he realizes the gas connection, he didn't put on correctly. And all of a sudden, everything is off. I don't have to worry about this anymore. It's no longer my problem. And the oven is still on 3 hours later, waiting for the salmon. So every time I think about like food and things that like didn't work out quite the way they were supposed to, I think about that. Also think about the recipe I was making the other night that had figs in it. And I was eagerly making the recipe and then realized it was supposed to have chestnut flour in it. Yeah, something I really keep in the kitchen all the time. So I have to learn to read the complete recipe. I made it with regular flour. It was fine, but I'm still wondering what that chestnut flour would have tasted like. Have to try it again. Next, we've got some November titles to look forward to. Oh, yes. Yes, put on your warm sweaters. November will be coming soon. First is Janet Ivanovich, Game On, a Stephanie Plum novel. This is Tempting 28. So when Stephanie Plum is woken up in the middle of the night by the sound of the footsteps in her apartment, she wishes she didn't have to keep her gun in the cookie jar in her kitchen. And when she finds out the intruder is her fellow apprehension agent, Diesel, 6 feet of hard muscle and bad attitude, but she hasn't seen in more than 2 years, she still thinks the gun might have come in handy. Turns out Diesel and Stephanie were on the trail of the same fugitive, Oswald Wednesday, an international computer hacker as brilliant as he is ruthless. Unsure if Diesel is her partner or her competition in this case, she'll need to watch her back every step of the way as she sets the stage to draw Wednesday out from behind his computer and into the real world. So there you go. Game On. Get that dart right in the middle, Janet Ivanovich. Next, really interesting book, The Lyrics. And I'm doing this because remember, gifts, holiday, buy early. This is one you might want to think about for anybody who loves Paul McCartney. It's The Lyrics, 1956 to the present. It is coming out on November 2nd. From his early Liverpool days through the historic decade of the Beatles to Wings and his long solo career, The Lyrics paints a definitive text of 154 Paul McCartney songs with first-person commentaries on his life and music. Spanning 2 alphabetically arranged volumes, these commentaries reveal how the songs came to be and the people who inspired them. His devoted parents, Mary and Jim, his songwriting partner, John Lennon, I think you heard of that guy, his Golden Earth girl, Linda Eastman, his wife, Nancy McCartney, and even Queen Elizabeth, among many others. Their origins of Let It Be, Lovely Rita, Yesterday, The Mull of Kintyre, as well as McCartney's literary influences, including Shakespeare, Lewis Carroll, and Alan Durband, his high school English teacher. With images from McCartney's personal archives, handwritten notes, handwritten texts, paintings, and photographs, hundreds previously unseen. The lyric spans 64 years, becomes the definitive and literary visual record of one of the greatest songwriters of our time. It's like this thinks it sounds like a very fine present. I know exactly somebody I could give that one to. For Annie, if Annie's listening, this is a present for you. Coming out November 2nd. And the notes were written by, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember his name. Paul Muldoon. Paul Muldoon is a poet, and he actually was working with Paul on this project. So there you go. Now we've got Our Country Friends by Gary Scheingart. This is coming on November 2nd. This is a pandemic kind of book, because March 2020, whenever we hear March 2020 for the rest of our lives, what are we going to think? Lockdown, go to the house, don't leave any place, put on a mask, and wash your groceries. Luckily, we're not doing that anymore. And we're not dusting the mail either. Thank God. It's March 2020 and a calamity is unfolding. A group of friends and friends of friends gathers in a country house to wait out the pandemic. And over the next 6 months, new friendships and romances will take hold, while old betrayals will emerge, forcing each character to reevaluate whom they love and what matters most. This unlikely cast of characters include a Russian-born novelist, his Russian-born psychiatrist wife, the precocious child obsessed with K-pop, a struggling Indian-American writer, a wildly successful Korean-American app developer, a global dandy with 3 passports, a young flamethrower of an essayist, originally from the Carolinas, and a movie star. The actor whose arrival upsets the equilibrium of this chosen family. So you've got Our Country Friends. And we do know that in 2020, beginning in March, we hunkered down with people that we never would have been expecting that we're going to spend the next 18 months with. And some of us learned to cook better. Some of us learned things. Just picture what this house was like with this collection of people all together. Next, from Ken Follett, we've got a book called Never. This is very different for him because it's more of a thriller than what you would usually expect from him. He's the best-selling author of The Evening and The Morning. Every catastrophe begins with a little problem that didn't get fixed. And so says Pauline Green, the president of the United States, in Ken Follett's nerve-wracking drama of international tension. A shrinking oasis in the Sahara Desert, a stolen US Army drone, an uninhabited Japanese island, and one country's secret stash of deadly chemical poisons. All these play roles in a relentlessly escalating crisis. Struggling to prevent the outbreak of world war are a young woman intelligence officer, a spy working undercover with jihadists, a brilliant Chinese spy master, and Pauline herself, beleaguered by a popular rival for the next presidential election. So there you've got Never by Ken Follett. Next, you've got The Sentence by Louise Erdrich, which is coming on November 9th. Her latest novel asks what we owe to the living, to the dead, to the reader, and to the book. A small independent bookstore in Minneapolis is haunted from November 2019 to November 2020. Keep those dates in mind, folks, by the store's most annoying customer. Flora dies on Old Souls Day, but she simply won't leave the store. Tuki, who has landed a job selling books after years of incarceration and she has survived by reading with murderous attention, must solve the mystery of this haunting, while at the same time trying to understand all that occurs in Minneapolis during this year of grief, astonishment, isolation, and furious reckoning. So there you've got The Sentence. Again, a little bit during that time period that we all know so well, coming on November 9th. Then we've got from David Baldacci, we've got Mercy, which is an Atlee Pine thriller. It's coming on November 16th. Her entire life, FBI agent Atlee Pine has been searching for her twin sister, Mercy, who was abducted at the age of 6 and never seen again. Mercy's disappearance has left behind a damaged family that later shattered beyond repair when Atlee's parents inexplicably abandoned her. Now, after a perilous investigation that nearly proved fatal, she's finally discovered not only the reason behind her parents' abandonment and Mercy's kidnapping, but also the most promising breakthrough yet, proof that Mercy survived her abduction and then escaped her captors many years ago. When the truth is finally revealed, Atlee Pine will face the greatest danger yet and may well cost her everything. So we've got David Baldacci, November 16th. And from Diana Gabaldon, Go Tell the Bees That I Am Gone. It's coming on November 23rd. 1779, and Claire and Jamie are at last reunited with their daughter Brianna and her husband Roger and their children at Fraser's Ridge. Having the family together is a dream the Frasers had long thought impossible. Yet even in the North Carolina backcountry, the effects of war are being felt. Tensions in the colonies are great, and local feelings run hot enough to boil to hell's tea kettle. Jamie knows loyalties among his tenants are split, and it won't be long until the war is on his doorstep. And meanwhile, the Revolutionary War creeps ever closer to Fraser's Ridge. And with the family finally together, Jamie and Claire may have more at stake than ever before. So there you've got latest Outlander. Tell all the bees that I am gone. Okay, then from Ann Patchett, we've got These Precious Days, which is coming on November 23rd. Any story that starts will also end. As writer, Ann Patchett knows what the outcome of fiction will be. Life, however, often takes turns we didn't see coming. And she ponders this truth in these wise essays that offer a fresh and intimate look into her mind and heart. At the center of These Precious Days is the title essay, a surprising and moving meditation on an unexpected friendship that explores what it means to be seen, to find someone with whom you can be your best and most complete self. When Patchett chose an early galley of an actor and producer's Tom Hanks short story collection to read one night before bed, she had no idea that this single choice would be life-changing. It would introduce her to a remarkable woman, Tom's brilliant assistant, Suki, with whom she would find a form of profound bond that held monumental consequences for them both. And a little backstory on this here. Suki at one point needs treatment in Nashville. She has cancer and she needs treatment and she's coming there. And Anne says, well, then you can come stay with me. So the whole time she's going through her treatment, Suki is a part of Anne's life. And it's sort of like what they're lending to each other, whether it's telling stories to each other or the alone time that each one of them is craving and getting to know somebody in a very, very different way. And she trips over because she's reading Tom Hanks' short story collection. And then he ends up narrating one of her books. And that's how this whole thing comes together. So there you've got These Precious Days. Then we've got Wish You Were Here by Jodi Picoult, which is coming on November 30th. And this is actually going to be a holiday cheer title, one of our holiday cheer. That'll be the next promotion that we do. Diana O'Toole is perfectly on track. She'll be married by 30, done having kids by 35, move out to the New York City suburbs, all while climbing the professional ladder in a cutthroat art auction world. She's not engaged just yet, but she knows her boyfriend, Finn, a surgical resident, is about to propose on their romantic getaway to the Galapagos days before her 30th birthday. So she's on track for everything that she wants to do. But then a virus is felt worlds away, and we know what virus that is. And it has appeared in the city. And on the eve of their departure, Finn breaks the news he has to stay behind. You should still go, he assures her, and reluctantly she does. And almost immediately, her dream vacation goes awry. Her luggage is lost, the Wi-Fi is nearly non-existent, and the hotel they booked is shut down due to the pandemic. In fact, the whole island is now under quarantine, and she's stranded until the borders open again. Completely isolated, she must venture beyond her comfort zone. Slowly, she carves out a connection with the local family when a teenager with a secret opens up to Diana, despite her father's suspicion of outsiders. So there we've got, I think we now have 3 books that are like happening during the pandemic. We might have 4. Should make that little pop quiz at the beginning. But this sounds really interesting. But there are people that did go, somebody went to a very remote island and they were stuck there. And now they're staying at this outrageously priced hotel and they can't leave because they can't get, pardoned back to the United States because they're not cleared for, travel. It's just this story of like, yeah, we're in this really great resort. We're racking up this bill every single day and we can't get out. So Wish You Were Here, I was thinking of as I read more about this book. Okay, so what have we been doing recently at Book Reporter? Well, we've got our recent Book Reporter Talks To, videos and podcasts, talked to Naomi Hirahara about Clark and Division. Really interesting story. Folks, I had no idea that when the people, Japanese Americans, were interred at camps in California and other places on the West Coast, that they were eventually moved and let go and told to resettle in Chicago. And this is what happened on the streets of Clark and Division, where a lot of these people lived. And there's a mystery because that's what Naomi does really well. Before they get there, the family's daughter goes missing. And all of a sudden, like, where does the story go from here? She talks about her research, really, really an in-depth interview. Kent, as always, is going to tell a great story and tells great tales about his inspiration for this book and why he wrote it now. Damnation Spring, absolutely fabulous by Ash Davidson. You'll learn about redwoods in her book. You'll learn about trees, but you're going to learn in the interview why this all mattered to Ash on her background growing up. Paper Palace, huge bestseller, fabulous talk with Miranda. And we dove into the book, including that the ending was something that didn't come to her until she was 3 pages from the end. And she did not know what was going to end up for her characters. It's not something she wrote organically in advance, but she did write about a part of the country that she absolutely loves. So really, really interesting interview with her. And last, Mona Lisa, Jonathan Santlifer is one of my favorite people to sit and chat with because we just go off on all kinds of great tangents, including in this interview. You will learn how the two of us ended up getting a picture taken with us and William Lashner on the steps of Gianni Versace's mansion in Miami. Yes, we definitely have had some adventures together. These are 36 bets on selections so far, and there's a whole crop of them. There'll be another probably whole row of these the next time we get together. Also, you may be wondering why I have this bottle of tequila behind me. It's a large bottle with only this much left. Those of you who have watched our video already about our start and our 25th anniversary that we recently celebrated on August 27th, which we're going to continue to celebrate for throughout the year, will understand the bottle of tequila. I'll drop the link if you didn't get a chance to see it. It has to do with something that happened at our 5th anniversary party. And I'll drop that link in the leave behind for those of you who are watching this live. Let me think of what else. Hold on a second. What else we got? Oh, here's to some great reading. Our next Bookaccino live event will be looking at books coming from October 12th through November 2nd and a peek ahead at December. It will be happening on Wednesday, October 13th at 2:00 in the afternoon. For those of you who know that I like Paul Simon, that will also be Paul Simon's 80th birthday. I might have to run a little soundtrack underneath. And the sign up for that will be live later today. And it will be sent to anybody who is attending. Others, there is a link on the site on the right-hand side of the page. You can always look at the piece of art that will direct you to the link on Bookreporter. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We couldn't do this every month if you weren't showing up. And publishers, I will tell you, could not believe how many of you show up every month. And when we share those numbers, it's terrific. So thank you for joining us and being part. And, you know, though we don't get to see you, it's really nice to be able to interact with you like this, even though we can't see each other in person. It means a lot, especially right now. Thanks. See you next month.